In 2023, a home care worker in London, Ontario, visited 11 seniors in a single week. She kept a notebook, not because anyone asked her to, but because she wanted to understand something. She wrote down what was on the counter, what was on the stove, and what was in the garbage. By Friday, she had her answer. 9 of the 11 seniors were eating the same 3 or 4 meals in rotation, every day, every week, without variation. The meals were not random. They were chosen. Chosen because they were cheap. Chosen because they were fast. Chosen because they could be made without thinking on a night when thinking was the hardest thing in the world. She recognized every meal on her list. Her own grandmother had made them. Number 20 costs 60 cents. Number 13 has been keeping Canadian seniors alive through winters for decades. Number 1 is not a meal anyone celebrates, but it is the meal that more Canadian seniors eat more often than any other food in this country. These 25 meals are not recipes from a book. They are the daily reality of feeding yourself alone on a fixed income in a kitchen that used to hold a family. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 dirt cheap meals Canadian seniors living alone eat every single day. Number 25. Half a tin of soup saved for tomorrow. Not a full tin, half. A senior who has learned to eat alone has learned that a full tin of soup is too much for one sitting. So the tin is opened, half is heated, and the other half goes into the fridge in a container for tomorrow. One tin becomes 2 meals. One 89-cent purchase becomes 2 suppers. The arithmetic is small, but it is the arithmetic that governs every decision in a kitchen where the pension runs out before the month does. The half-tin habit is not frugality. It is the mathematics of 1. Number 24. Instant noodles with a fried egg on top. A packet of Mr. Noodle or Ichiban cooked in a pot. 1 egg cracked on top during the last minute. The broth was salty enough to make your eyes water. The noodles were soft, and the egg gave it enough protein to call it a meal instead of a snack. A packet cost 40 cents. An egg cost 35 cents. The meal cost 75 cents, and it took 4 minutes. For a senior who had grown up thinking instant noodles were for students, discovering them at 78 was like finding money in a coat pocket. They were cheap, and they were easy, and they were warm, and the egg made them feel legitimate. Number 23. Canned peaches, eaten from the container. Not in a bowl with a fork. The syrup sipped from the edge after the peaches were gone. A tin of store-brand peaches cost $1.30. It was dessert, and it was fruit, and it was the sweetest thing in the cupboard. For a senior who no longer baked, and no longer made pie, and no longer did any of the things that used to produce sweetness in a kitchen, canned peaches were the last source of something that tasted like being taken care of. Number 22. Cheese sandwich. 2 slices of bread, a slice of cheese, no butter, no mustard, no lettuce, just bread and cheese, pressed together and eaten at the counter in 4 bites. This was not a lunch. This was what happened at 2 in the afternoon when a senior realized they had not eaten since the toast that morning, and the hunger had become a headache. The sandwich took 30 seconds. It cost about 60 cents. It stopped the headache. That was its only job, and it did it without complaint. Number 21. Soup and bun from the day-old rack. A tin of soup heated on the stove. A bread roll from the day-old bakery rack at the grocery store, the ones marked down to 4 for $1 because they were a day past fresh. The bun was torn in half and dipped into the soup, and the combination cost about $1.10. It served as both lunch and dinner, because a senior who ate it at noon would not be hungry again until morning. The day-old rack was not a place of shame. It was a strategy. Every senior who shopped the markdown section knew exactly when the bakery marked things down, and arrived at that time on that day every week. Number 20. Oatmeal for dinner. Not breakfast. Dinner. A bowl of oatmeal with brown sugar and milk at 5:30 in the evening. This was the meal that seniors ate more often than they told anyone because eating porridge for supper felt like an admission that something had changed. But what had changed was simple. The appetite had shrunk. The energy had shrunk. The interest in standing at a stove for 20 minutes had shrunk. And a bowl of oatmeal that took 3 minutes cost 40 cents and sat warm in the stomach was more than enough, when enough was all you were looking for. Number 19. Frozen dinner from a tray. A hungry man, Swanson or store brand frozen dinner, microwaved for 4 minutes, eaten from the tray, no plate, no transfer, no washing up except a fork. A frozen dinner cost $3.50, which was expensive by the standards of this list, but it required nothing. No chopping, no stirring, no standing, no deciding. The decision had been made by the company that packaged it. The senior's only job was to pull back the plastic, press the buttons, and wait. For a person whose daily supply of decisions was exhausted by noon, a frozen dinner was not laziness. It was the outsourcing of the last decision of the day. Number 18. Tuna mixed with mayonnaise, eaten on crackers. A tin of tuna drained. A spoonful of mayonnaise stirred in. Scooped onto crackers one at a time. Eaten at the table, on the couch, or standing at the counter looking out the window. The tuna cost $1.50. The mayonnaise was already in the fridge. The crackers were always in the cupboard. This was the meal that never required a grocery trip because every ingredient was a staple that lasted weeks. A senior who kept tuna, mayo, and crackers in the house was a senior who always had a meal available, regardless of weather, energy, or the distance to the nearest store. Number 17. Fried egg with toast. 1 egg, 1 slice of toast. Butter in the pan. 3 minutes, under 50 cents. This was the meal that a senior ate for breakfast and then ate again for dinner because it had worked at 7 in the morning, and there was no reason it would not work at 6 in the evening. The egg was protein. The toast was something to hold. The butter was the only luxury. A senior who ate a fried egg on toast twice a day was spending less than $1 on food and consuming enough calories to keep going, not thriving. Going at 79, in a kitchen that used to feed 4, was the only verb that mattered. Number 16. White rice with butter and soy sauce. A cup of rice cooked in a pot. A knob of butter stirred through. A splash of soy sauce. Eaten from the pot with a spoon. This was the meal of Chinese Canadian and Japanese Canadian seniors who had been eating rice every day of their lives and saw no reason to stop at 80. But it was also the meal of seniors who had never eaten rice until they were 60 and discovered that a 10-pound bag cost $6 and lasted a month and provided more meals per dollar than anything else in the store. The butter and soy sauce turned plain rice into something that tasted like someone had seasoned it with care. Nobody had, but the illusion was enough. Number 15. Canned tomato soup. 1 tin, heated in a pot with a tin of water or milk, poured into a mug, drunk while sitting in the chair, not eaten with a spoon at the table, drunk from a mug like tea. This was the meal that became a drink because eating required a table and a spoon and a bowl and washing up, and drinking required only a mug and a chair. Campbell's tomato soup consumed from a mug was the most efficient meal in a senior's kitchen. 1 tin cost $1. It made 2 mugs. Each mug was warm and tangy and red, and it felt like medicine, even though it was not. The mug went into the sink. The chair stayed warm. The evening continued. Number 14. Peanut butter toast. Every single day. A slice of toast. Peanut butter spread thick, eaten at the counter. 30 seconds, 30 cents. This was the meal that appeared at every hour of the day in seniors' apartments across the country. Breakfast at 7. Lunch at noon. Supper at 5. Midnight snack at 11. Peanut butter toast did not belong to any meal because it belonged to all of them. A jar of peanut butter lasted 3 weeks. A loaf of bread lasted 5 days. Together, they formed the most reliable food system in a senior's kitchen, one that never failed, never disappointed, and never required more effort than opening a jar and pushing down a toaster handle. Number 13. Split pea soup that lasts all week. A bag of split peas and onion, water, and salt simmered for an hour. The peas dissolved and the broth thickened. The pot lasted 5 days in the fridge, reheated 1 bowl at a time. The bag of peas cost $1. The onion cost 30 cents. 5 days of meals for $1.30. That is 26 cents per meal. No other food on this list comes close to that number. A senior who made a pot of split pea soup on Sunday was a senior who did not have to think about supper until Friday. 5 days of not deciding. 5 days of opening the fridge and knowing exactly what was inside and exactly how to heat it. The not deciding was worth more than the soup. First pattern break. Here's what eating every single day means when you are living alone on a pension. It means the same grocery list every week, the same aisle at the same store on the same day, the same 12 items in the cart: soup, bread, eggs, cheese, peanut butter, crackers, tuna, rice, oats, milk, frozen dinners, canned fruit. That is the list. It does not change because the budget does not change, and the appetite does not change, and the energy does not change. The variety that other people take for granted, the luxury of deciding between chicken and fish, between pasta and rice, between something new and something familiar, does not exist on a fixed income. Variety costs money. Repetition is free. And the seniors who eat these same 25 meals every day are not bored. They are efficient. They have solved the problem of feeding themselves on almost nothing. And the solution is a system that runs without interruption, without surprise, and without the daily exhaustion of choosing. Number 12. Cottage cheese straight from the container. No plate, no bowl, a spoon and the container. Eaten at the table or in the chair. Cottage cheese provided protein and calcium. It required no preparation, no cooking, and no heating. A container cost $3 and lasted 4 meals. For a senior whose doctor had told them to eat more protein and whose body was too tired to cook meat, cottage cheese was the compromise that kept both of them quiet. Number 11. Bologna sandwich, a slice of bologna on white bread with mustard. Eaten at the counter in 3 bites. A package of bologna cost $3 and lasted 2 weeks. The bread was always there. The mustard was always there. The sandwich was always the same, because same was the point. A senior who ate a bologna sandwich at noon every day was not eating a sandwich. They were performing a ritual. The bread came out. The bologna came out. The mustard was applied in the same pattern every time, a single stripe down the middle. The second slice went on top. The sandwich was cut in half. Not because cutting it improved the taste, because cutting it is what their mother did. And doing what their mother did was the last link in a chain that stretched back 60 years to a kitchen that no longer existed. Number 10. A bowl of cereal at supper time. Cornflakes, Cheerios, Bran Flakes, whatever was in the box. Milk poured over, eaten at the kitchen table at 5:45 in the evening, with the television on in the other room. This was the meal that seniors ate every day and denied every day, because cereal for supper was not something you admitted to your children. The children would worry. The children would drive over. The children would stand in the kitchen, look at the cereal box and the bowl and the spoon, and they would know. So the senior ate cereal at 5:45. And when the phone rang at 6 and the child asked what they had for dinner, they said, chicken. They always said, chicken. Number 9. Buttered toast with jam. 2 slices every morning. the same jam, the same butter, the same pattern of spreading. The knife that has been used for this purpose for so long that the handle is smooth from decades of the same grip. This was not a meal that changed. This was a meal that anchored. It was the first act of every day, and it was identical to the first act of yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. A senior who eats buttered toast with jam at 7:15 every morning is not eating breakfast. They are starting the day the same way they have started it for 40 years. And that continuity, that refusal to let the morning become unfamiliar, is what keeps the day from sliding into something shapeless. Number 8, tea and biscuits, not cookies. The plain ones from the tin, 2 biscuits and a cup of tea at 3 in the afternoon. Every day, this was not a snack. This was the meal that marked the division between afternoon and evening. Before the biscuits, the day still had possibility. After the biscuits, the day was winding down. The tea was made the same way every time, the same mug, the same amount of milk, the same number of minutes steeping. A senior who drank tea and ate biscuits at that time was not feeding themselves. They were keeping time. And keeping time, when the days have stopped being different from each other, is an act of survival that looks like nothing but means everything. Second pattern break. Here is what nobody tells you about the daily meals of seniors living alone. They are not about nutrition. They are about structure. A senior who eats the same breakfast at 7:15, the same lunch at noon, and the same dinner at 5:45 is not following a meal plan. They are building a scaffolding that holds the day upright. Without the meals, the day collapses into a single, undifferentiated stretch of hours between waking and sleeping. The meals create punctuation marks. They create reasons to stand up, walk to the kitchen, and do something with purpose. The toast at 7:15 says the day has started. The soup at noon says the day is halfway done. The cereal at 5:45 says the day is almost over, and you survived it. The meals are not fuel. They are architecture. The seniors who eat the same 25 meals every single day are not stuck in a rut. They are building a house out of routine, because routine is the only building material they have left. Number 7. Canned stew heated in the microwave, not on the stove. In the microwave, in the same bowl it will be eaten from. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The stew was salty and thick. The meat was soft, and the potatoes were already cut. The whole thing was a complete meal that required nothing except pulling back a lid and pressing a button. A tin cost $2.50. That was expensive for this list. But the tin contained an entire meal with meat and vegetables and gravy, and it asked nothing of the person eating it except the ability to open it. On the days when opening a tin was the maximum effort available, this was the meal that met the maximum and did not ask for more. Number 6. 2 crackers with cheese before bed. Not a meal, a ritual. 2 crackers and 2 slices of cheese eaten in bed at 9:30 at night while reading or watching television. This was the senior's nightcap, the thing between the last real meal and sleep. It was not enough to be called food. It was enough to keep the stomach from waking a person at 3 in the morning with a hollow ache that made the dark feel darker. 2 crackers and 2 slices of cheese cost about 30 cents. They lasted 2 minutes. They were the last act of eating in a day that had contained 3 or 4 other acts of eating, each one as small and deliberate as this one. Number 5. Soft-boiled egg in a cup. 1 egg is boiled for 5 minutes, placed in a cup, and the top is sliced off with a knife. Salt is sprinkled inside. It is eaten with a spoon, scooping the white and the yolk from the shell. This was the meal that connected a senior to their childhood, because their mother had made it this way, and their grandmother had made it the same way before her. The cup was sometimes the same cup. The knife was sometimes the same knife. The ritual had not changed in 70 years. The only thing that had changed was the number of people at the table, which had gone from 4 to 1, without anyone marking the moment it happened. Number 4. Reheated leftovers from 3 days ago. Whatever was cooked on Monday, portioned into containers and eaten on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and sometimes Thursday. The same meal 4 days in a row. The senior did not mind. The senior preferred it. Cooking once and eating 4 times was the system that kept the stove cold for 3 days, and the kitchen quiet, and the effort contained to a single afternoon. By Thursday, the leftovers had changed flavor. The soup was thicker. The stew was richer. The pasta had absorbed the sauce. Thursday's version was always better than Monday's, and a senior who knew this had learned something about food that most people never discover. Patience improves everything. Number 3. A banana and a glass of milk. A banana peeled and eaten in 6 bites. A glass of milk. That was supper. On certain nights for a certain number of Canadian seniors, a banana and a glass of milk was the entire evening meal. It was not enough. The senior knew it was not enough. The banana provided potassium and the milk provided calcium, and together they provided about 250 calories, which is roughly half of what a person needs for dinner. But half was what was available, because the budget had run out, or the appetite had shut down, or the distance between the chair and the stove was too far tonight. A banana and a glass of milk at 6 o'clock in a quiet apartment is not a meal anyone would choose. It is a meal that chooses you. Number 2. Toast. Just toast. 1 or 2 slices. Butter if there is butter. Nothing else. Eaten standing at the counter or sitting at the table or in the chair by the window. This is the meal that appears more often in the daily diets of Canadian seniors than any cooked food. Not because toast is good, because toast is possible. A toaster requires pressing 1 lever. Bread requires opening 1 bag. Butter requires 1 knife. The total effort is under 60 seconds. The total cost is under 20 cents. And the total nutrition is almost nothing. But the toast is warm, and it is something. Something is the word that keeps appearing on this list, because something is the standard that a senior living alone measures every meal against. Not good. Not healthy. Not enough. Something. Number 1. Tea. Just tea. A cup of tea at 6 o'clock in the evening instead of dinner. The kettle boiled. The bag dropped in, the milk added, the cup carried to the chair. The tea sipped slowly while the light fades outside the window, and the kitchen stays dark. This is the most common evening meal for Canadian seniors living alone. Not because they have chosen tea over food, because by 6 o'clock, the day has taken everything, and the only thing left that requires less effort than toast is tea. The kettle is the last appliance. The cup is the last dish. The chair is the last destination. And the tea, warm in the hands and warm in the stomach, is the last act of a day that asked too much and gave too little. A cup of tea costs about 4 cents. It is the cheapest meal on this list. It is the most common meal on this list. And it is the saddest meal on this list, because it is not a meal at all. It is what remains when everything else has been subtracted, but the cup is warm, and the person holding it is still here. And tomorrow, they will boil the kettle again. And that is enough. It has to be enough. Because for hundreds of thousands of Canadian seniors living alone tonight, it is all there is. Here is my challenge. Do not make a recipe. Make a visit. Go to a senior who lives alone, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor. Go today. Not next week. Today. Bring groceries. Not the groceries you think they need. The groceries they actually eat. Soup, bread, eggs, cheese, peanut butter, crackers, canned fruit. The 12 items on their list that never change. Fill the cupboard, fill the fridge, then sit with them and drink a cup of tea. Do not say anything about what you see in the kitchen, because they already know. They know the cereal is dinner. They know the toast is supper. They know the tea is the meal that is not a meal. The only thing they need more than groceries is someone sitting in the other chair. Someone to share that cup and the silence. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, not for the meals, for the visit, because these are not just meals, they are the daily heartbeat of people who are feeding themselves alone in a country that has stopped paying attention. And they deserve more than tea.